Why does the US, a country with over 330 million people, struggle to make a mark in the global sheep industry? Meanwhile, in Australia and New Zealand, sheep farming is practically a national sport, and they're leading the world in wool and lamb exports. Is it the sheep, the land, or is there a bigger story behind why America's sheep industry is so small? Stick around, because today we're diving into the fascinating world of sheep farming in the US, why it's shrunk over the years, and how Australia and New Zealand became the undisputed kings of wool and lamb. Believe it or not, there was a time when sheep farming in the US was booming. Back in the 1940s, the US had over 56 million sheep, and wool was essential for making military uniforms during World War II. But today, that number has dropped to just 5 million sheep, spread across all 50 states. So what happened? Let's break it down. First, let's talk about what Americans like to eat. The truth is, lamb and mutton have never been as popular in the US as other meats. On average, Americans eat just 0.4 pounds of lamb per person each year. That's basically one lamb chop. Compare that to New Zealand, where people eat 25 pounds of lamb per person annually, or Australia, where it's about 9 pounds per person. So, what's the deal? In the US, beef, pork, and chicken dominate the market. They're cheaper, more familiar, and easier to cook. Lamb just isn't part of the typical American diet, except for certain holidays or cultural traditions. And it's not just about lamb. Wool, which used to be a cornerstone of the US sheep industry, has also taken a major hit. During World War II, wool was in high demand for military uniforms, and sheep farming was heavily supported by the government. But after the war, synthetic fibres like polyester and nylon started taking over. They were cheaper, easier to produce, and didn't require as much maintenance. Today, the US produces about 25 to 30 million pounds of wool annually, but it's a shadow of what it used to be. Wool is still valued for its sustainability and durability, but it's now a niche product, especially in comparison to Australia, which dominates the global wool market. So, while the US has been scaling back, Australia and New Zealand have been perfecting their sheep industries. Let's start with Australia, where sheep farming is a way of life. Australia is home to over 70 million sheep, and it's the world's largest producer of merino wool, a super soft, fine wool that's prized by luxury fashion brands. In fact, Australia produces about 75% of the world's merino wool. Then there's New Zealand, with its lush green pastures and sheep-friendly landscape. New Zealand has about 25 million sheep, which means there are 5 sheep for every person living there. Unlike Australia, New Zealand focuses more on lamb meat production. It's the world's largest exporter of lamb, and their efficiency is unmatched. Meanwhile, sheep farming in the US faces a lot of unique challenges. For starters, most US sheep farms are small-scale operations with fewer than 100 sheep. That's tiny compared to the massive flocks of thousands you'll find in Australia and New Zealand. And then there's predation. Coyotes, wolves, and mountain lions are a constant threat to sheep farmers, especially in western states like Texas and Wyoming. In fact, predators are one of the leading causes of sheep losses in the US, costing farmers millions of dollars every year. That said, the US sheep industry isn't completely out of the game. Some states are leading the charge. Texas is the largest sheep-producing state, with huge flocks grazing on rugged terrain. California is a major player in lamb production, thanks to its diverse agricultural landscape. And Colorado is home to some of the largest lamb feedlots in the country, where lambs are finished for market. But even with these efforts, the US can only produce about 50% of the lamb it consumes. The rest is imported, mostly from Australia and New Zealand. Here's the good news. While the US sheep industry may be small, it's finding new ways to stand out. Niche markets are booming. Consumers are showing more interest in grass-fed lamb, organic wool, and artisan cheeses made from sheep milk, like Manchego and Roquefort. Plus, there's a growing demand for sustainable, locally sourced products, and sheep farming fits the bill perfectly. Sheep are incredible for regenerative agriculture. They can graze on land that's unsuitable for crops, improve soil health, and help prevent wildfires by reducing dry brush. So, why is the US sheep industry so much smaller than Australia's and New Zealand's? It comes down to a combination of cultural preferences, historical trends, and geographic advantages. Australia and New Zealand have climates and land perfectly suited for sheep farming, and they've spent decades mastering large-scale production. Meanwhile, the US has shifted its focus to other livestock industries like beef and chicken. But with growing interest in sustainable farming and niche markets, the US sheep industry has the potential to carve out its own unique space in the global market. Sheep might not be the first thing you think of when it comes to American agriculture, but they've got an incredible story to tell. Whether it's luxurious wool, tender lamb, or sustainable farming, these animals play a vital role in the agricultural world. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the US sheep industry and how it stacks up against Australia and New Zealand, hit that subscribe button for more fascinating stories about farming and sustainability. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Agriculture Academy.